Hello and welcome to Data First Media. My name is Brennan Ruby, and in today's episode, we're going to look at 3 different ways to use Power BI tooltips to level up your reporting and blow your stakeholders' minds. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so what I have open here is a Power BI desktop file. And before I get into the actual meat and potatoes of this analysis or this tutorial, what I do want to talk about a little bit is why you would need a tooltip and kind of why using tools like this are very important in your reporting, especially in a business environment. Things aren't always as pretty as they might seem on social media or online when you're, kind of messing around with data sets and practicing your skill set. In a data environment, it's very quick. There's a lot of important projects, and a lot of times your stakeholders aren't as versed in data and analysis as you are. And so, in order to help them get the most out of your reports, it's important not to overwhelm them, and it's very important to give them the data that they need without making your reports so noisy that the signal gets lost in the noise, if you will. And that's why tooltips are so powerful. They're there when you need them. They're not when you don't. And they help avoid creating too many chart elements and report elements within your reports. And it'll just help your stakeholders and your decision makers make better decisions more quickly. So let's get into it. So right now I'm going to pull up over on my other screen. I'm going to pull up my guide. Everything has been filled out on this one, so we can kind of go through it. But the first thing I want to do is just create a simple bar chart. So I'm going to come over here to Visuals, and whenever I'm kind of practicing skill sets like this, I don't really care about anything but that chart element. So I'm going to make it as big as I can, and I'm going to try to format it in a way that it looks good, but I don't need to scrutinize over all of the little details of a report. So the chart itself doesn't really matter for this analysis. Let's maybe go by month and let's do maybe the ZHVI. So what I'm working with today is some what am I trying to say? Some Zillow data. So I grabbed a bunch of Zillow data off of their website, and I have built a data model around real estate, and I'm going to kind of analyze some of that data. All right, so there's obviously a lot of months in this data set. Let's just go ahead and do something pretty quick and easy, maybe as on or after maybe last September. So we'll just we'll get about 12 months of data in here, September 1st, hit apply, and there you have it. Now this is a kind of a topic for another video, but I'm going to include data labels, which probably means I don't need the y-axis. If we're giving our stakeholders the numbers, why again distract them with an axis that they're not going to need to use? I'll kind of leave the position and the kind of the units as well. Again, I think it's pretty clear on the x-axis what we're looking at. It's by month, so we can take away off that, and I want to make it categorical so we can see each of the months. All right, so this chart is already looking better than it was, but however, it only really tells us one thing, and it tells us the overall average Zillow home value index over the last 12 months. It really, that's it. So you could do one of two things, right? You could create a bunch of KPIs that would be dynamic as you click on different elements of the chart. That wouldn't be a bad thing to do. But most of the time, the KPIs that you put across the top of a report is only going to show you the most recent data or the most recent trends of the data. So if I were to do a month over month or a year over year KPI up here, it's only going to show me probably the most up to date. You wouldn't want to put 12 sets of KPIs. Again, that's probably information overload. However, if we click on this chart and we scroll down here to the tooltips section, we can add any measure into here, and depending on what bar in the chart that we hover over, it'll show us that measure for that time frame. So maybe I can easily see the year over year, month over month for July 2023, and I can compare it to maybe October 2022. So let's go ahead and, oh, and I just noticed it's September when I'm recording this video, but the data is only through July. So in order for us to compare to last year, let's extend this to July. And I don't really want these videos to be too structured or, too structured or too scripted. And so you're going to get all of the little mess ups and all of the talking out loud that comes along with being a data analyst in real life. All right, so month over month and year over year, a lot of times are things that business leaders and stakeholders want to look at. I've built out those measures over here. So I'm going to do the month over month percentage in the tooltips. All you do is take the measure and drag it over into tooltips. And now when I hover, I not only see the two things that I've included in the chart already, which is the month and the ZHVI, but I also get the month over month percentage and the year over year percentage. It's not there when I don't want it, but if I'm a business leader and I'm in this report and I want to know what those numbers are, I can hover and I can get those numbers very quickly. So for instance, we're up 1.43% in average Zillow home value index year over year. And so if I scroll down here in July, I can see not only the number from July, the 270,000, but I can see that last year, the same time this year, my year over year increase was 14.65%. That's a huge difference. And that would be really hard to show in a chart or in a report. But by easily including these two tooltips in the chart, now I can see all of these numbers, right? And we can kind of hover over and see, man, we're kind of trending down, right? So 4.15 in March, 2.82, 1.92, 1.37, and 1.43. I would say that the home market, or at least home prices, have been cooling down. They're still going up, but they have been cooling down from this time last year and even earlier this year. And we're able to tell all of that just by using tooltips. But at the heart of the report, it's just one chart. And that's really the power of tooltips. This would be the most basic way to use tooltips. One thing to keep in mind is when you include measures in the tooltips section like this, every time the report refreshes, or you refresh a chart element by clicking a filter or interacting with another chart, those measures have to calculate. And so it will slow your report down. In many cases, you will never notice it. But just know that is a limitation. You can't throw in 10, 20 different tooltips. Not only would it be too busy for your stakeholders, but also it would really impact the performance of your report. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at a more advanced way to use tooltips. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the chart we just created. And I'm going to get rid of these tooltips because what we're going to do is we're going to create a tooltip based off of a report page. Okay, so I'm going to call this maybe top 10. So let's say that I wanted a tooltip so I can hover over the chart element and I would get the top 10 states by ZHV I. Okay, the first thing that we'll want to do is we'll want to come over to our page that's going to hold the tooltip. And I'm going to go to the format pane here for the page. I'm going to go to page information, and it's going to allow as tooltip. So this is going to allow me to use this page as a tooltip. You'll notice it gets really small. The easiest way to solve for that is, you could manually zoom in, but what I like to do is page view, fit to page. It'll bring it back. Now it takes some getting used to working with this. Tooltips just by nature are going to be smaller pages and smaller canvases. So you really want to keep your text very small. 8, 9 is the most that I go. 8's obviously the minimum, but also you're not going to be able to fit in as much on this page as you would a regular report page. However, I think this would be this is going to be a very useful tool for you in your day-to-day business. And let me tell you, you do this for people who aren't familiar with data and Power BI and analysis, like it's going to blow their minds that you can do this. They're going to think you are a wizard if you start pulling stuff like this at work. And, obviously that would be great for job promotions and job security. So leveling up your data analyst skills is obviously very important as you move through your career. All right, so for a top 10 table, I'll probably just use a measure here. I'm going to kind of make it a little bit smaller because I'm going to put a header at the top of this. Because whenever you hover over chart elements, depending on how they populate within the page, you might kind of forget what you're looking at, or it might cover up what you're hovered over. And, it might be easy for the stakeholder to, kind of not remember what they're looking at. So we're going to leave some room for maybe a couple of KPIs and a header up here. But I do want to do my top 10. And I said I wanted to do it by state. So I'm going to go ahead and go to rows for my states. And my measure is going to be ZHVI. And I actually think it would be very interesting to look at the month over month and year over year for these as well. So I'm going to go month over month, year over year. And one thing I forgot to talk about on the basic tooltip tutorial on the last page is that anytime you drag things into the bars over here, you can actually change the names. So I don't really need average in this name, so I'm going to go ahead and double click, and I'm going to do that. For this, I can really just call it month over month. I don't think anybody really needs any more information than that. And then I'm going to go year over year here as well. Obviously, if I was creating this report in a business environment, I would probably be formatting the headers, adjusting the format and all that kind of stuff. But for the sake of this tutorial and to keep these videos very quick, I'm going to assume that you guys can figure that out. And if not, I will do videos specifically on things like formatting and good formatting principles in the future. But for now, let me just make sure that we're as small as possible because we are going to try to fit in a couple more things on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything down into 8. But like I said, normally I would format this to maybe 1 decimal. It looks like everything's already center aligned, which I'm surprised about. But all right, so I think that's good. Now, before we add on to this, let's just go ahead and make sure that our report page tooltip function is working. So we did everything on this page that we need to. You'll notice that I hid the page. And that's because you don't want your stakeholders to be able to see it. They're only going to see it when they hover over the chart. So hiding it, will take it out of the report navigation itself. So if I come back over here, I'm going to click on my chart. I'm going to go over here to Format Visual, and I'm going to go to General and then Tooltips. And if I open this up, you can see the type's already set to Report Page, and it's going to ask me what page. I'm going to go ahead and click Top 10. And now when I hover, you'll see that table that we just created, okay? And it changes. It doesn't change because we didn't do the top 10 yet. So in order to do the top 10, what you'll want to do is you'll want to come over to the filters pane back on your tooltip page. You'll want to go to state, basic filtering, switch it to top in. We're going to do the top 10, and we're going to do it by the average ZHVI. So we're going to drag that into this value, hit apply, and now we're looking at a top 10. Let's go ahead and see if the grid has any row padding. It does. We'll change the global font size, and there. We can fit the full top 10 into our report just like that. I did say earlier that I wanted to throw in some KPIs. I think the best way to do that would be to maybe do them over here on the right. But the first thing I want to do is I want to insert a KPI card, and I'm just going to drag over the earliest month. And right now it's just going to give me the earliest month in my data set. But when my stakeholders hover on the chart, it's going to give them the month that they've selected, because whenever you hover over that chart the way it's designed, the report filters to just the 1 month. So I'm going to definitely decrease this maybe down to 14. I don't need the category label, and it would probably look, I have no idea what just happened there, so I'm going to hit Control Z. It'll probably look really good if we maybe do a general effects background. Let's do like a cool blue. And then for the actual call out value, let's do white. So let's do that. And again, a lot of these design principles that I'm using are not ones that I would ultimately land on. I am using a custom theme for this report, but it still needs some tweaking. And even with a custom theme, you will get different things that you have to update. But now if we go back to our report page tooltip and hover, you'll notice that we have July 2023 because that is what we hovered over. If I come over here, it's going to say June. So this just kind of reminds the user what they're looking at. Finally, let's do a couple of KPIs because since we're not doing the basic tooltips, which is where we did the month over month and year over year, those are probably metrics that we want to give our users, right? So I'm just going to drag over the month over month percentage and the year over year. Again, this is a very rough mock-up. Depending on how you look at it, the fun or the not so fun part is once you've built everything out, then you need to format it in ways that your business users will be impressed with. But I will caution: do not over format your reports. It shouldn't take 2 or 3 days to build a report and then 2 or 3 weeks to format it. Formatting in a business environment is not all that important as long as it looks professional and it doesn't take away from the value of the data. Over engineering fonts and color schemes and rounded edges and all these things, it's just not worth it, because at the end of the day your stakeholders need to make decisions based on the data you're providing to them. And if you slow yourself down by over formatting, you're going to take away from the real value that you could have as a data analyst. So I'm going to go ahead and put in year over year here. I'm going to change the names. So if I come back here to the report page, hover, and you have it. You have the formatted header to show what month we're looking at, the 2 KPIs of month over month, year over year, but also a top 10. And you could argue I probably should have sorted the table better. I probably should have added a title that said top 10. But again, I just want to show you guys the function of a tooltip, and you can get really creative with these report page tooltips. The last way that I want to show you guys, and I do need to make this one quick because I'm running low on time, but I want to take this same report, but you can actually add a tooltip to the header of the chart itself. And you can do that the same way we just did the other. So I'm going to hide this page and I'm going to call it data context. And the benefit of creating a tooltip in the header of a chart is that you can add definitions and glossaries and different things like that. So again, we're going to come up to page information. We're going to allow to use as a tooltip. We're going to hit page view, fit to page. And I'm actually just going to copy over what I've done in my guide file. So the first thing that I did was I pulled the definition of ZHVI from the Zillow website. I then also created a couple of bullet points with additional information about my data. Okay. And the reason why this is my favorite way to use report header tooltips is because it's only one tooltip for the chart as its entirety. You can't hover over different elements to see different time frames or different groups of data. You hover over the top of the chart and it gives you, one report page. I've seen people get very dynamic with this. So as you filter different parts of the page, this tooltip will change. And maybe that's a video for another day. But again, over engineering and over formatting your reports usually does not reap the value that you're looking for as a data analyst. In many cases, being a good data analyst for your business is helping your decision makers make decisions with good informed data. And a lot of times those are very simple questions. You don't need super complex reporting. Again, when you hover over tooltips and different things like that, a lot of times things can get messy. So I find it very beneficial to come in here to the the actual page canvas settings, go to background. I'm just going to make this the lightest gray possible in the theme, and that should actually look very good when I hover. So if I come back over here, I'm going to click on my chart, and if I go to General, Header Icons, and scroll down here to Icons, inside of here should be a Help Tooltip. So I'm going to click on this, and it opened up another submenu for me. So I'm going to click on here, type report page. I'm going to pick my data context report page, and you see this little question mark. When I hover over it, it's going to give me that definition in that context of the data. This is very helpful in a business environment where you have a lot of KPIs and metrics with complex calculations. If you had a chart with a calculation or a measure, and your users might want to know, when does the time start or stop? How do you calculate this metric? In my day-to-day, time to fill is a big number in TA. So being able to define time to fill and show them the actual calculation in a time to fill chart is very helpful. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. These are 3 ways that you can use Tooltips to level up your porting and blow your stakeholders' minds. If you like this content, please please subscribe. We're very early on in this journey, and I can't wait to bring you guys more content. Thank you.